Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a guest that's coming back. He's a horror author, and he has some new work that he wants to go over with us today. I have with us E.M. Otero. E.M., welcome back to the Horror Room.
Hey, it's good to be back.
It's a pleasure having you back on, man. So, what have you been up to since you last been on? I know you have a lot of short stories that you're coming out with.
Yes, absolutely. I've been. Oh, sorry. Let me just grab this little guy here. I have been nonstop writing, and I had a handful of stories that were coming out on a now defunct publishing site. And most places they want things that have never been published before and all that. I mean, there's some like reprints and everything, but I wanted a place just to put those up, so I started a Patreon page. And that was also a way to have it just be directly to me, no middleman, because obviously after this defunct publisher kind of made me wary of some places, but that hasn't stopped me from submitting to many places, and I'm hoping to have more coming up. But until then, I have some serialized stories coming out. I have a novella that I have coming out on there that is more sci-fi than horror, but I have lots of horror coming as well on there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Now, real quick, I just wanted to jump on something. As a author that's out there right now, I have a lot of new authors who watch my show. What are some signs, if there's any signs, when it comes to maybe you shouldn't submit your work to a press?
I think the first sign for me was that there's no contract. And I asked for a contract, never got one, and that should have been the first sign right there. But I was like, oh, maybe it's just kind of a go with your flow kind of thing. No, it was. You should always get a contract, and I guess kind of their behavior. Like if you follow them on social media and all that, you should see some professionalism. At the very least, I know in horror there is a lot of eccentric personalities. And eccentric is one thing, but bullying is another. And for me, that was when I called it quits with them, was seeing how they're treating someone, just treating everyone. And then things got worse. And I got out pretty early. But yeah, definitely look for a contract.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because any business in general that doesn't want your contract, your red flag should definitely go off. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, and it's a shame because there's so many great indie horror writers out there, and and I'm not saying for the majority of presses and publishers are pretty great, but there are those little small ones that you got to watch out for, and they do take advantage of the writers.
Absolutely. And now when I'm submitting, I've got a couple out to bigger ones that I've gotten nibbles from, second reading responses and all that. And the problem with them is that, it might take a year before you hear back. But that if they get accepted, it's going to be legitimate. And other ones like the Unveiling Nightmares, which I am publishing my novel and 2 novellas through, they have 2 really good submission readers. And I submitted my 1 novella to 4 different places, and I heard back from them within a week. And I already know that they're a legitimate place, that they're a good group. They are. Crystal
is amazing. Yeah, Crystal's amazing. Shout out Crystal.
She is. So, I mean, some people, I had actually another indie author reach out to me because they thought, they got a response within 3 days of their story, and they reached out to me because they saw I was on their website, and they're like, "Is this place legit?" And I was like, "Yes, they are. They some voracious readers, and and they don't accept everything." That was one thing that I was kind of wondering about too with this other press that I sent. Is I sent them a manuscript, and I realized that there's only half of it in there, and they accepted it. And I noticed a mistake. So,
wow.
So that can be kind of a thing that you got to watch out for too. Is I know vanity presses are known for that, where they'll just accept whatever because you're paying them.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of red flags here and there. And that's where like the Patreon's a great thing because that's me. I'm the one managing that. I'm the one going through it, and I'm completely accountable for everything. So if I post something up and only half of it's missing, someone could be like, "Hey, where's the rest of the story? Was it supposed to be like this?" And I'd be like, "Oh
Mhm.
crap, man, that's or because it's only going through me, there might be I don't know some like grammar mistakes, so it's a little bit more raw in that way. But I try to do as much as possible with that. But it is still something that like it is directly from me to the consumer.
So, what's on your Patreon right now? If I, by the way, your Patreon, by the way, if everyone, it is on the Patreon is Otero,
Yep.
Otero. So definitely check it out. So, what can we expect to see on your Patreon right now?
So right now, I have everything for free because I'm just trying to get more people on there. I don't have a huge audience, so I got I've got a lot of people viewing it, but not very many subscribers at the moment. But what I have on there right now is my novelette, Eyes of the Blizzard, which is essentially my life in a lot of ways. Just it's like my job. I have like a character that's like my wife, my daughter, my dog that has an old man name, um, and my job. And it like I work as a groundskeeper at a nursing home, and there's many like some of my stories kind of come from that in a lot of ways because I like just blue collar stuff like Laird Barron where he has all of his characters are they have blue collar jobs. They're not professors out there doing whatever. It's a miner, a hunter, or whatever. So this story is about a blizzard, and I live in upstate New York. We have blizzards all the time, and sometimes I'll end up working 16 plus hours just
Wow.
on one blizzard, or I'll work 16 hours, take a nap, come back into work another 16 hours. And things can get weird on like, hour 14, 15, 3 in the morning, and it can get kind of spooky. And that's where this story kind of came from. And this was actually going to be a submission to another small press, but it got accepted somewhere else, and that place is now defunct. So I'm putting it up for free. And this story follows Carlos, who is essentially me, as a blizzard hits. And there's also like what they think is a serial killer going around because there's children going missing and all of that, but some of them are being found way out in the woods. And this is actually a Inuit monster called an Isirok, and they are known for stealing children and leaving them out in the woods. But one of the things that is peculiar about them is that they're shapeshifters, and when they interact with humans or anything like that, the human afterwards loses memory of them. So
Mhm.
they'll can have this weird experience, all that, and then as they become more distant from it, they lose all memory. And the main thing about them is that no matter what shape they're in, their eyes and their mouth are inverted. So they're vertical. So they'll try and hide their face and mouth when they're trying to fool you.
Interesting. So listen. So I have a question because I'm
Yeah.
always curious about this when it comes to like writers or even filmmakers.
Yeah.
Like you have a full as an indie writer, you have a full time job.
I do.
You work long hours like I did,
Yep.
and then you got to come home and then there's dad and husband and family life.
Yep.
How do you find time or balance time to write to come up with creative ideas?
Well, my job consists of a lot of manual labor, and I kind of picked this job because it wasn't mentally straining. So, like it's a lot harder to write when you're mentally tired versus when you're physically tired, I found. And while I'm out mowing, digging, doing any kind of manual labor, my mind's usually spinning. So I will maybe an idea will occur to me, and I'll be like, oh, I have notes I have a Google Docs document on my phone. That's story ideas, that's notes, and sometimes something will occur to me, and I'll just put it in there, and then I'll elaborate it on at night. And that's what I do. 90% of my writing is when my daughter's in bed, my wife's asleep. I just have my laptop, and I just pluck away on there for a few hours every night. And I found that I need to write every night, or else I kind of lose momentum.
Yes. And I mean, I've told people the same thing, even with me, with my show, like, I have to do a video or something on a regular basis, because if not, I've done it for it and I jump into an interview after like 4 days off and I just lose my touch.
Yeah.
And it becomes an awkward interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the like the thing that, it's I can't I'm bad at talking. I'm better at writing, but it's just the flow of it. Like if you do something all the time, it becomes easier.
Yes.
And when I first started writing, it was this daunting thing. Like I thought that was going to be the hard part, was writing the book, when really it's everything else after that's hard. But I have found with this, and also I'm trying to be more active on social media and all that, because people interact. That's another way to get out. I find that I try to post something every day. And working outside, a lot of my stuff I post is actually like bugs, insects, cool things I find. And that's something I'm passionate about too, is entomology, the study of butterflies. I can never say the word for that one, but like butterflies and moths have always fascinated me. So like I'm always posting pictures of stuff like that. And I know it's not necessarily writing, but it's something that I'm putting up, people can see and interact with.
That's amazing, man. All right, so listen, I'm gonna ask you a question right now. I'm pretty sure you,
Okay.
you follow the indie horror writing scene and so forth. So there's a lot of crazy shit that's been going on in
Yes.
the indie horror community. I mean, with your former publisher, press, and even there's 2 writers sending shit out and then this and that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
What the fuck is going on?
I think it's just people. Like in every group, no matter what it is, there's gonna be 1 or 2 assholes, and it's just math. Like eventually, it's gonna happen. Unfortunately, and there's just a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are in this community, and like I think all things draw certain types of assholes, for lack of a better word. So, like, religion will draw, like, certain people that are going to prey on certain types of people. Like, with the writing community will draw certain people that will prey on a different type of person. And they can mask it in different ways. So, like, I have my own hang-ups on religion, organized religion mostly. But that, they prey on people, like the worst of the worst. Well, and like there's a lot of great things that the church has done, all churches, but there's a lot of abhorrent, horrible shit that they've done. And like with social media now, everyone has a microphone, and we're seeing now like the fall of great actors that people have loved their entire lives. And then they're like, oh, Morgan Freeman kind of married his sort of granddaughter that he adopted. So, like, it's. And you're just realizing that all these people out there, they're weird, and if they can get away with it, they will.
Yeah, but the thing that makes me scratch my head, right? Like, if right now some weird shit came out about me, but I don't think anybody would care. But let's say if people did care, right? The first thing I would do, PR wise, I would be like, oh shit, I apologize for my actions and I will never do that again, right? That is the Tom Cruise, whoever way of doing things, right?
Yes.
But have you noticed now, like people get caught for doing fucked up shit and they're pretty much saying, oh, well, fuck it. Like, whoa, like, I mean, I've watched people literally don't care about their careers anymore.
Yeah, it is strange. Well, and maybe with the indie writing community, there's not a lot at stake. So like if you are someone who's written 10, 15 books, oh, my light just went out, and maybe sold 100 copies of each, like, and you still have a full-time job, like, so what if someone outs you for blackmailing some girls because you have their nudes and all that, like I can just turn off my socials, I'm in my small town, it's not really going to affect me anyways. You know what I mean? Just change, like, and with the Tom Cruises and all that, who he's a cult upon himself, like they have to kind of make a big thing about it because they are in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. But even since even a lot of them are just saying like they don't say nothing. They don't even apologize. They just don't say nothing. And I feel like saying nothing is actually worse. Just dropping back. I call it the Will Smith route. Just don't say nothing about it. Don't even address it at all. I feel like that's a fucked up thing. I feel like that's worse than coming out and saying, fuck you, I'm not apologizing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that can be the certain approach for like certain things. Like if someone were to accuse me of being a shape-shifting lizard monster, I'm probably not going to address that.
Yeah.
But you know, like, and there's bad stuff all the time. But when someone's like I don't know, being accused of sexual assault and they just don't mention it, that's different. And then there's the Garth Brooks things where people are coming on his stuff, asking where the bodies are. Like, do you address that? Because that kind of started as, I think, a joke, but I don't know because you never know.
I'm just saying right now. Listen, and I would never do this. Let's say, just say, if I came on here right now and said something very something insensitive to a certain race or LGBTQ or women or something, right? And I started getting backlash from it. Listen, and that might happen one day. I don't know. Hopefully not. But if I started getting backlash for it and I started looking at my subscribers numbers started impacting it and people are canceling me, the ultimate PR move is to come out and apologize. And individuals that we're talking about are absolutely fucking silent. They just didn't say nothing.
Yeah. And it's weird because we're seeing like that happen with politics now. It's people either double down or, they're greasy and they slide out of it. And they're like, all right, I'm going to lose some stuff, but I'm authentic. This is the real me. And people who love the real me will always be here. And so maybe they see it as it's their crucible, that they will come out with the loyalist of the loyal, and people that will stand by them, ride or die, no matter what.
If you don't say nothing, I start thinking you're fucking guilty. Like, I'm being serious. If you don't come out and say nothing at all, I automatically start assuming, because I'm not one of these people. I just did an interview recently where I'm not one of these people who would cancel somebody just because of one side of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need to hear both sides of the story before I start canceling. Or like, but like, if you don't say nothing, if you don't try to defend yourself, if somebody said right now, Travis Bruce kills dogs, and I don't say nothing.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I completely agree. It's weird, but it's a weird world right now. Like, people seem to celebrate chaos, and people that just want to throw a wrench into the game, like I don't know. It's the Joker mentality of some people just want to watch the world burn and they celebrate it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because I just noticed that in a lot of in indie horror writing, and unfortunately, it's all men, and not one of them has came out and said nothing. Yes. Just silence, just absolutely ghostly silence.
Yeah, and maybe it's if I ignore it, it'll go away. Hands over, and
people will forget or something. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know, but everything's recorded now, and part of the problem too is that culture changes. So we could be saying something right now that maybe in the future, 15 years from now, people might find wrong and insensitive, and they will be going through if someone gets famous, they automatically go through the archives of everything they've ever said and might pull out an interview that was done on a website that no longer exists, but someone kept the screenshots of them saying something about, I don't know, robots being weird or something, and then the robots are all upset, and E.M. Otero is not on the robot side. Look at this. He kicked his Roomba. And, then you have to apologize and just be like, well, I was ignorant then. Some people are just not willing to change.
Yeah. And it's sad, but at the same time, I like for the individuals to be identified. You know what I mean? thing about the indie horror community that I don't like, is they do not they do not blacklist or put out the bad people in the community. So the rest of the people in indie horror don't know that this is a bad person until something bad happens. Oh well, that person did the same thing to me, and like they
Yeah.
don't talk badly about the bad people, and I think that is not the way to handle it at all.
No, it's not. It's got to be more of a community, and like you're finding little bastions of it. Like Unveiling Nightmares is very much like we're gonna stay out of the drama, but like maybe this person's not so great, then we'll bring it up. Like, hey, this thing has come to light. Like, just try and stay out of it. Like, this is a bad thing happening, and I've been paying attention because there are some people that are shouting out that are just going against it, like Alex Johnson, who you had, and I watched that interview where he kind of laid everything out. Like, I constantly see him posting about certain things and certain people, and and that's good to have. And I mean, it might make him very unpopular with some people,
Yes.
but it's an honorable thing to to just be like, hey, I don't care what happens to me, but this guy is doing wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, I literally lost subscribers for having certain individuals on here for talking about that gentleman, because there's just people who still follow that, you know what I mean? And it's kind of weird because I never said anything bad about this gentleman, and like, but people are like, oh, why did you have that person on? But that person had freedom of speech to say what the fuck they want to do. I'm not,
absolutely.
I don't censor somebody unless they're saying something hate speech. Why? I don't censor anybody from saying what they're going to say.
Absolutely not, because as soon as you drive those kind of people underground, when you censor what they speak, you give them authenticity, you give them merit. Like, you're like, oh, like, people will see like, oh, they're trying to silence this person, so he must be saying something really important. When really you're just, you're giving them power. So I always say, let everyone speak. Give them enough rope to hang himself. They'll either, like, you'll get something good out of it, and sometimes they might be more nuanced than you thought. Or you might be like, okay, this guy's crazy. Like, that's something that, like, I had a coworker who he was a decent guy for the most part, but I always like to, like, ask people questions about what they like, and then I'm gonna grab this dog real quick.
You're fine.
But I always like to, when someone is interested in something, I'm always like, hey, like, tell me more about it. And this guy was really into Bigfoot, and I was like, well, tell me about it. Like, I'm not going to shame anyone for anything. And he was showing me pictures of taking, like, he would take flash photography in the middle of the night on back roads and, like, zoom in on this part of it and be like, see this face right here? Like, this is the one that's watching me and all that. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that, oh, all right. And then occasionally he would show me something that is truly strange. Like, he caught this picture and he said it looked like footprints. It was like 3 feet of snow, and there was divots in the snow that were paced out like 7 feet apart. And he was like, and it went into the woods like this. And he was like, I did the math. If something was making those footprints, they'd be 25 feet tall. And I'm like, well, where is this thing going to be all the time? And I was like, this is not like the most rural area in the world. And he was like, oh, well, they're not here all the time. He's like, they travel between dimensions. He's like, they're like, Bigfoot is an interdimensional being who knows when people are watching him. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I have no judgment and all that, but like, so, like,
I'm the same way. I am the same way. Listen, if even if I don't believe in what you say, right? I talk to crazy people. So I get, all right. So listen, I get accused of talking to crazy people on the streets. Like, that's what I get accused of. And I remember, like, one of my coworkers, we stopped at a Wawa, and this man was clearly crazy. Came up to me and talking about that he was a ninja and this and that. And I started literally asking questions about finding out like his ninja. And my coworker was looking at me like, Travis, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what? That man is clearly crazy, and you're asking questions about being a ninja. And I was like, I was curious. what I mean. I was curious what, and maybe that's why I do what I do. I'm curious about how people's brains work. Like if anybody who
Yes.
ever knows me in my real life, I am asking people what if questions all the time. I love what if questions. Who do you? I'm like, who do you think will win in the fight between a shark and a bear? Like I am that person that always, because I like to hear how people's brains think, and that's something that fascinates me, and that's why I love doing this because I love hearing
Yeah.
people's brains think.
I have a friend at work who we have these conversations a lot, and he's the like goth kid that it wasn't a phase, and he randomly asked me once like, what if the government was all full of vampires and they had a warrant to enter your home, would the vampire be able, if he was a police officer, to cross the threshold? And I wrote him like an essay of how I would answer this. I'm like, well, it's based off of what the threshold barrier is. It's like, is it like societal? Is it like a taboo? Then yeah, he would be able to, because he's a police officer. He got permission from the state. There's that. And then is it like a magical thing where you can't cross a threshold without permission? And then how far does the permission of the warrant give them, the authority to do that? And he was like, "This is amazing." He's like, "This is why I ask you these questions."
All
But
right, so I'm about to ask you off the wall question, Ian.
okay,
Are you ready? I know that
yep,
you're into mecha, what's called mechas and robots and all that stuff,
yes.
right? And AI. Do you think that eventually AI and robots are going to take over the world?
I oh god, yes and no. I think that like like you can say that they're going to take over the world like a slime mold would, like completely insentient idiot god type of situation where they're in every part of our lives. Like everything is automated. Everything, like you can't go a day really and be a part of society without having some kind of AI and robot. Sorry. Being a part of it, like it's literally ingrained into everything, and it's only going to get worse. Like there's AI writing, there's AI art, there's AI like voice stuff going on now. Like they have like they had the narration of oh god, what's that guy's name? The guy who did No Reservations that died, and they had him narrate
Oh
his
yeah,
own. They had him narrate his own documentary because they could do that with AI because there's so much of him talking that they could easily do that.
something crazy.
So that's my like AI take over slime mold theory, where it's just going to be everywhere and we won't be able to do anything without it. And then maybe a sunspot happens or a coronal mass injection wipes everything out, and the only people that survive are the ones that lived in the woods the whole time.
Ah,
And then there is like kind of in my stories where the AI is more of like kind of malevolent, but also like it depends on what they deem, because you can't really understand something that you have no basis on their agency. Like they have no biological responses. Like they're not going to value necessarily the earth because like it's just a resource necessarily. They might not value human life because it's just these things on the earth that might mess them up. So it's hard to say, like, because you can't understand like a completely alien intelligence, and that's what it would be. And I think it's all about how it comes about, because if it becomes truly sentient, like anything that's sentient, it will respond with the way it's treated and what it sees. So if you, let's say, create an AI in a vacuum and you do all these tests on it and like make it do horrible things, jump through hoops, all of that, you might end up with a sociopathic AI. But if you maybe create an AI and then feed it like art and like good stuff in the world and all that, like just because they put out what they get in, like almost any organism or anything. So if you just feed them beauty and the love of humanity, like it that it might be completely benevolent. or if you make it off the foundation of someone's mind that already exists. So, and like it just really depends. Like, because if you make an all powerful AI out of the mind of someone who is a business billionaire, like that's how it's going to think. That's how it's going to start from the world and go from there.
And don't you think? But because I keep hearing like, so there's a huge argument that's going on right now: college education or trade school, right? And college people hate trade people, and trade people hate college people, right? And
yes,
but here's my thing, and I think we need both. I really do. I even though I'm the college person, I still think that we need both, right? But like I already see that Amazon is already test driving the trucks that deliver by themselves. So in the next 5-10 years, there's going to be no more truck drivers. I mean, that's just not going to be a thing. Amazon is already eliminating warehouse workers because they got robots in the fucking warehouses packing up the package. So soon, I just feel like a lot of labor jobs are going to. I mean, you go to a grocery store, there's no more cashiers anymore. There's no lady working at the toll booth anymore. Even like when in the state of Maryland, you have to get what's called emissions done on your vehicle. I think every 2 years. It's all self-service now. A computer does it. I went to my bank last week, and there's no bank tellers in it anymore. It's literally a fucking computer box, and with a phone that if you need to speak to a banker, it's a guy at home like, "Hey, what's up?" on the screen. Like, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah, it definitely seems dystopian, but there's two ideas to this of like, maybe the harder labor jobs that aren't safe will be taken by the robots, and then that allows those people to go into other trades that might be more safe. And there's always going to be someone that needs to fix the robots until they learn to fix themselves, and then even then there might be coding. This dog is just wild. He's 4-month-old wiener dog, and he's just got a big personality. And the cats are in here too, so he's trying to attack them. But there's always going to be a need for man to be involved somewhere, and I think it's going to evolve. Like, we don't have people that light gas lamps in the street anymore. We don't have people that go around throwing pebbles at people's windows to wake them up in the morning. Like, no one's crying about that. No one's saying like, "Oh, we need to bring back the lamp-lighters. We need to bring back, that." Like, it's there's going to be things that are going to go away, and I understand the fear because, okay, I'm going to grab him again. Because my boss jokes a lot about there's like the Roomba lawnmowers. Roomba.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was about to say. I didn't want to scare you though, but I was like, Roomba should be coming up with a lawnmower by now.
They have them, and like it could probably in a few years it could do my job, and probably when it comes to a point that it is more cost efficient to have like a fleet of these things doing it than having me there, pay me overtime, healthcare, all that. This dog, that's good. Oh my god! You need to stop.
I mean, think about it, because if I own a landscape company right now, and if the Roombas could do as good as your job as a human being could, and all I do is just go to a location and drop the Roombas off, and they just do it, and I come back and pick them up. Fucking amazing.
I mean, I would probably do it too, honestly, for my own place. But like, I don't know, like that. I think there's gonna be a point, like a rocket ship, where there's only so much you can make, only how big you can make it before you just start having, you have to fuel it too much, and it just becomes no point. Like it's defeating returns. I think there'll be a point of that where it will not be sustainable, where there'll be too many of these robots that are needing to be repaired, being maintained, that it's going to be like, well, this thing keeps breaking down. We should just, hire that guy back. And, I don't know. Like, I understand the Luddite view, but I come from a blue collar background, and I'm also college educated to an extent, but I also am a big reader. But I also see the value in trades and labors, because you see it at any large enough workplace where there is offices, and then there's people that maintain the building. And I have people that are like, oh, those college educated dumb people, like they don't understand, we had a water incident with sewage happening, and we had to call over the building, like, hey, no one flushed the toilets. Like, please do not flush the toilets. And then my wife tells me that, oh yeah, my coworker over here, she flushed the toilet. She said it worked fine, so she didn't see what the big deal was. As sewage is raining down on us in the basement. Oh. So, there's a disconnect of that. And I have coworkers that are like, oh, they're just dumb. I'm like, they have no reason to know this. Why would they need to know that, if you do this thing with this electrical thing, that this will happen? Mm-hmm. Or it's just not their realm. And people aren't going to know things until you tell them. Mm-hmm. And, there's a place for everything. And I truly believe that, the robot apocalypse singularity nonsense is not gonna happen for a long, long time. And even if it does, it will be something that will be more convenient than anything else. It'll be like death. It'll simply be like death by luxury. We won't even know when it happens. We will slowly, we don't have to walk anymore because of this thing. We don't have to do this anymore because of this thing. And, I'm like, oh, we don't have to breathe anymore because of this thing. And then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, well, we can experience this whole beautiful world inside of this, pod. And then, it becomes like, the brains in jars. And... and we'll love it the entire time, because why not? Why not have the access to your own created universe? How
about cyborgs? You think we'll see the part where that there'll be human beings and half human beings, half robots?
We are cyborgs right now. How many phone numbers do you remember? I know mine. I know my wife's. I know my jobs.
Yeah, that's why.
So. And, you have glasses. That is a piece of technology that is aiding you. And, it's ancient. So, when we get technology that fills up that takes up a niche in our brain, that is us offsetting that, because now we don't remember phone numbers, but we have access to remember more things now. And that kind of, delegation of our body and mind is just gonna keep happening. And like I said, we are already cyborgs. It's just not implanted yet, and it's gonna start happening. They have cochlear implants right now that you can hook up to Bluetooth, so you can talk to people on the phone without having your phone. It's gonna keep happening, and I'm sure at some point there's gonna be a prosthetic that's better than your hand or better than your leg, and then people are just gonna be like, well, I want the turbo leg, and get that instead. It's gonna happen. It depends. My wife has often asked me, which would you rather? Because she's a what if person too, and sometimes it's infuriating because it's just the wildest stuff. But she asked me once, she's like, which would you rather lose, one of your arms or one of your legs? And I was like, well, I'd rather lose one of my legs because I do a lot with my hands, and also I think it'd be pretty cool to have one of those crowbar legs, that. The runners have, that'd be pretty badass, I thought. But
I don't think so. I think an arm. I think I better take an arm. Yeah.
I don't think I could type one-handed. And also, I drive a zero turn, so I kind of need both hands for that. But I don't know. Everyone has their different things. But, it's there's going to be they're going to be able to replace things in your body that are going to be better than the ones you're born with. I just saw that there was someone that got a like a height transplant. Like they gained like they put poles in his legs and made him 4 inches taller, which was like straight out of Gattaca. You know, like.
But I mean, they even got like ass implants. Like now that a woman with no ass can have an ass. I mean, they even have like the fucking dick implants where if you want a bigger penis, you can get a bigger penis.
Yeah, that's cyborgs. Yeah, and it's not going to stop because as soon as we could figure out how to manipulate matter, we found out how to ways to make us better in other ways. Like one of my favorite things that in like archaeology is that like fertility artifact, it just means dildo. Like people found out technology and they found a way to masturbate with it. So like it's just going to constantly evolve, and it's crazy. Like because I was probably like I'm a millennial, so I'm that generation that I grew up to a certain point without internet. Like I had nothing. I had dial up. I had, then I had Wi-Fi, I had Skype, I had all that. I was downloading movies, like all that, like within 10 years. It's like, so I guess like it's completely like it's endless, like what you can imagine. And one thing, having a young kid, I don't know how old your kids are, but we do this with the phones. I see a lot of kids do this because of like smartphones.
Yes.
And it's so strange. Or they'll do this instead because they're pretending to video chat. And it's funny how like I had to explain to my daughter what hang up the phone means. And I went over here because I have an old-fashioned rotary phone in my office. I was like, well, people used to hang up the phone. And
I have one too. And like every once in a while you'll hear it ring randomly during my interviews because no one calls the damn phone. So when someone calls me, like, oh, that never happened.
What's that?
Yeah.
And then you don't know what to do with it because you're like, like this just has a phone number on it. I don't know whose phone number that is because I don't remember those anymore. And then,
But like, I listen, so I'm a millennial too. I'm an old millennial. And I grew up, I remember like internet started getting popular. People I knew started getting computers and internet when I was in junior high, right? It was junior high when I started noticing people talking about, and there was computers with internet in the library. But my parents, I grew up kind of poor, so like I know that I was still using the Encyclopedia Britannicas. But by the way, Gen Zers, back before the internet, if you had to do research, you had all these big ass fucking books that you had to open to find, and then you had a source. It was a pain in the ass. You guys have it so much easier right now. And
and then it might even be wrong information too that's in there, and you're like, oh well, I just believe this now because it's the only thing I have to base it off of.
Yes, and then like it wasn't until like I want to say it was my junior year of high school, and we finally got a computer. It was a Gateway. That's when Gateway computers were like the big thing. And then we got of course, the AOL internet, which was the dial-up, which was the shittiest thing ever because trying to watch a movie or trying to watch porn as a high school kid was impossible with that buffering. Like you just give up at some point. You would just give up in mid-whack and it'd be like this. Okay, this is taking too long. Fuck it. I'm going to go or something. But but like it was crazy, yes, because in a 10-year time span, and then boom, Wi-Fi and Netflix and all this shit all happened in like a 10-year time span.
Yeah.
And you realize how fucking fast technology moves.
Yeah, I remember buying like anime VHS tapes where you had, 3 20-minute episodes for $40 or something like that. And then a few years later, I'd like, I'll download all 300 episodes of the show, and like a half an hour is mine, and it's wild. But like, it's also great because I grew up in a small town. I was exposed to things that I would never have known about. Mm-hmm. And then you also find community online. Like I had friends in other states that I met online that my parents thought were probably molesters or something. But like,
if there could have been,
It could have been. It could have been. That's a thing, but you kind of learn to suss them out a little bit. This is,
By the way, I
but
still have a friend that I never fucking met, and we still keep in contact with each other. And because of Facebook, I know he's a real person. I know he's not a child molester because thanks to Facebook. But like I met this guy named Chuck. I met him playing Xbox Live, playing Halo and Call of Duty. And then like thank God for Facebook, I realized that he was a real guy. Like I was like, oh, this is Chuck. Like, yeah, Chuck was definitely like 15, 20 years older than me. I didn't know that, wife and kids and everything, but like we're still kind of friends,
Yeah, and I kind of I don't have too many of those friends anymore on Facebook. I've gone through several cullings of all my friends on Facebook here and there, but I definitely had friends I had never met, like, and talked to here and there, and were as close as friends in real life. And I think that is one good thing about like technology right now, is being able to find a community where you don't have one, like just around you.
Exactly.
And like being able to be exposed to things, good and bad. Like, you're never gonna know that there's, I have no idea. Like I just remember reading about some like crazy stuff on the internet and going on the bus in the morning and being like, guys, did you know that there's people out like in the South that do like snake handling, and they like, bring snakes to people, and if they bite them, like it's a tribulation from God, and like the other seventh graders are like, what? It's and there's like that's also why my daughter doesn't ride the bus now, but but like,
but it's a whole new world out there that we didn't see for years growing up. That like the next generation, my nephew who's in the bathroom blowing it up. You know what I mean? Like he's getting to see something. He's getting to experience things that I never got to experience, and like kind of have, I would say, a little bit more of an edge too.
Yeah.
Education.
Absolutely, because it's kind of hard growing up naive now and not knowing things. Like you're kind of, there's like an internet worldly that you can be. Like you can travel the world on the internet and you can know all sorts of things. You can find journalists. Like you can learn about like addicts on in Skid Row in California. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching an interview with a serial killer. I believe it was like the Iceman killer or something like that. And he was, and I was like, I don't know, 13, and I'm listening to this guy talk about how he would like leave people tortured. That he would like tie them up outside of culverts in the city and then cover them with honey and sit there and watch the rats eat them, and get them go to school the next day in middle school, and it's something that you wouldn't be exposed to unless you got reruns of Forensic Files at 2 a.m. out of nowhere. And
I would say I've learned more about like World War I, World War II, Vietnam War as an adult from the internet than I have than I ever did in school. I'm being dead serious. It seems like in school you kind of get the brush around of history.
Yeah,
you don't get the full. You don't get the good stuff.
No, you don't. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and listen to a lot of books while I'm working. So that's been like a whole nother education. And like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, where he talks about like the cons for 14 hours or whatever, and you like find out that like these people like just decimated so many people, but they also brought like a golden age to that area in the same way. Like that they killed so many people, they changed the carbon footprint of humanity on the earth. And that there was traders that were coming up to a city that they knew was there 2 years ago, but now all of a sudden it's just a mountain of bones. Like they don't tell you that stuff when you take global history.
No.
And and I'm coming up to that with my daughter right now when she comes up to me, and she's 7 years old, and comes to me like, oh, I learned about this thing today. And I'm like, that's kind of wrong. But, they're not going to tell you that, that kind of stuff until you're older. But you also kind of have to balance it, where you don't want your child to be arguing with their teacher. They're like, well, my dad told me that, Pocahontas was actually,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always been a voracious reader and researcher on the most random things that
Me too.
I've definitely been the know-it-all in some crowds, and they're not always favored,
No, but I feel like it makes you like I was talking to someone recently. I was like I'm a sales and marketing guy. Like that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm good at. But I said that in order to be good at sales and marketing, you got to know a little bit about everything, right?
Yeah.
So I can literally sit there and talk to anyone about anything because I know a little bit about everything. I could sit there and talk to someone. I never bow hunted in my life. I can sit there and talk to someone about bow hunting. I've never, what I mean? I've never did IT work or create an app, but I can talk to somebody about it because I researched it. I learned about it. So like I can literally communicate with anyone and I can gain myself onto their level. And that's what most people can't do. Most people only know about things that they're interested in.
Oh yeah. And like I love listening to anyone talk about whatever it is they're passionate about.
Yes.
Like, because if someone's passionate about it, they can make the most boring, mundane thing sound super interesting.
100%.
And yeah, and like I get interested in the most random stuff all the time. Like, and I don't necessarily fit in with my blue collar crowd at work with some of that stuff, but I can talk to them about just about anything because, like you, I always say that I have approximate knowledge of all things because I just know a little bit of everything, so I can hold a conversation with just about anyone. But like that's a lot easier to do now.
Yep.
And like I've definitely gone down some weird rabbit holes, and I know more about some things that make people turn heads, and like this was my psychology teachers in college's like whole thing where she liked to push people, and she liked to make things uncomfortable. So we had a research project we had to do it was sociology, and she had like the bonus like topics that you could pick. And my dogs are wrestling in the background. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's WWE back there.
Okay.
And so I was always been someone that doesn't mind making people feel uncomfortable. So I went up there. I was like, I'll take one of your bonus question ones, and she gladly handed me circumcision. So I know a lot about circumcision because I did a 20-page paper and a 40-minute presentation on circumcision, and it comes up in conversation every once in a while, but also
I know a lot about circumcision. I know a lot about. I know more probably than more the average human being about circumcision too, because it's something I just looked up. It was something I found out about, and like, I can literally talk to anybody about pretty much anything. I mean, I just. But I'm right now. When I find like a guest, especially and they tell me something that I never heard of. Like I just recently had a guest who said that he tried ayahuasca, and I was like, and I've heard about that. I don't know what ayahuasca does. And I sat there for a good 20 minutes and talked to him about what his experience with ayahuasca was. And I was just so fascinated.
Yeah, like I love that stuff too. And what's funny I don't know if you've noticed going down rabbit holes on the internet is that now, speaking of like the singularity and all that, they pay attention. So you start getting ads for things.
Yes.
And when I was doing that project, I got an Amazon ad for a practice circumcision kit that came with like 45 replaceable foreskins. And I was like, this is great. And I threw that into the presentation too. And I was like, if anyone's interested in doing further research, you can buy this. And
I'm constantly getting advertisements right now for the Ozempic weight loss pill because I kept on hearing people talk about it, and I wanted to see if it was a real thing. So I googled to see if it was a real thing. Is that like really people are losing this weight? And now I'm getting Ozempic ads constantly, and I'm like, guys, I don't want Ozempic. I was just curious if this is a real thing, and is this like what I mean? Is this one of those weight loss things? But no, but I see people, it actually works. And I'm like, wow, but it's like $300 a week. So I don't think the average person can afford that.
Yeah, no, it's not. And it's I get a lot of that stuff too. I get random stuff because I do feel like the stuff listens to you. They
Oh, they
deny
love
it,
this too.
but I'm also look up stuff for work a lot. So I work in a nursing home, so I might be like, oh, what, like the Foley bag or whatever. That so you get all sorts of random things, and I'll get random emails that's like, do you need your geriatric jacuzzi fixed? And they're like, no, sir, I do not. But thank you. You know,
Uh,
and I don't know. I've been pretty eclectic with all of that stuff always. Like in sci-fi and horror, like you have to research things and get like,
yeah.
especially with science fiction, depending on what kind you write. I try to lean towards like hard science fiction because I like learning about that. So I have a pretty good understanding on how fission and fusion reactors work, and I also understand you know like how much it would take to crush a skull, and stuff like that. And because I'm constantly writing and thinking about this stuff, I will come up like we'll do something at work. Like we had to replace something called a muffin monster, which is a grinder that you put in a sewage system, so it grinds up the stuff so it flows through, easily. So you might end up with like random stuff gets flushed all the time, and this is to prevent it from getting the pipes. And so it's a mean looking like bunch of gears. Like I'm sure you've seen videos where people throw like metal into that thing and it grinds it up. It's one of those, a little bit smaller, that you put in a pipe. And we had found like a doll's dress in there at one point, and then we noticed something else. And I'm like, oh, someone probably like dumped a body in here and just ground it up, and no one would ever know. And I'm like, that could be a good story, And and I remember explaining this to the Unveiling Nightmares group because someone will be like, "What's a good way to dispose a body in the winter?" And I brought that up. I'm like, "Well, if you know where one of these are, all you have to do is pull the manhole cover off and then drop it in there." And they're like, "Well, how would someone take a manhole cover off?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, you can just go to Lowe's and you can get a manhole hook and take it off because they're about 150, 200 pounds. So
and they probably think you're a serial killer.
Yeah,
they're like, okay, dude.
But when you're exposed to just random things like that, it's just having a knowledge that other people wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And it's out. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting thing where you can apply that kind of stuff to your writing. And you're writing like in my novel, The Halloween Between Worlds, I have garden towers that are in these underground cities that help like with oxygen, but also as like to get produce and all of that. But it also helps people, like if people are in an office space with no plants, they're more depressed than if there is plants. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned like, because I like to throw in little details and like little problems, because even in a utopia, things break. So I remember one of my coworkers talking about how he had to replace all the lines on his maple situation he had going on because they were made out of soy and all the squirrels were eating his lines. And so like that was something I threw in there. Just like certain water lines were made out of soy and it caused a flood because the squirrels ate it. So they had to change the, product of that. And, it's like just you gain knowledge from everywhere and put it into everything. Like all the characters I write are people I've met in one way or another. They might be in a completely different situation, but it's someone that I can relate to.
Love it, man. Ian, listen, I can sit here and talk to you all night, man. This is always
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so where can everyone find you?
I am on Patreon at EM Otero. I am on Instagram, EM Otero as well. EM Otero author, I believe. Facebook. But definitely head over to the Patreon because I have that one story, Eyes of the Blizzard. I have some poetry. I have me just blogging about random things. I have I have some mecha stories. I have one that's a mixture of both called The Groundskeeper that is about a groundskeeper, but it's also set in this timeline where the mechs are around. I am gonna be releasing a new serial called The Engines of Zenith, which is another science fiction horror mecha that is unrelated to my other one. And I also have another like folk horror, like guys in the woods going hunting, but encounter abomination situation coming up that I'm going to be putting on there.
Listen, everyone, get over to his Patreon, which is EM Otero. Right now, it's free, so definitely check out, support, subscribe. EM, it's been a blast, man. It's always fun to have you on.
Absolutely, it's always fun to be here too.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is EM Otero. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.